Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back. My name is Matthew, and today I am joined by a very special guest, none other than I Am God LOA, aka Joey. How are you doing today, Joey?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I can't complain. It's been a really good day so far.
Awesome, really glad to hear it. Now, we got some really in-depth topics that we feel like we need to discuss today. Some topics that aren't discussed enough, and there is definitely going to be some people that are probably going to want to scream limiting beliefs at us, but stick around because you're going to see just how much of a difference this is going to make for you from a really good standpoint. Now, jumping straight into it, the first topic that we want to talk about is the idea of fast success equals slow problems. Now, Joey, I know that you've been talking a little bit lately on your your community posts and such places like that, where you've been talking about this element of, solely focusing only on a singular desire and kind of letting other things go to the wayside. So do you want to kind of go into a little bit more detail about what fast success equals slow problems means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I have been even on like TikTok and shit everywhere. But yeah. So here's the thing, and this is something that I've just noticed within the community as of recently. I feel like number one is people are focusing a little bit too heavily on just one thing. You know what I'm saying? And people are not willing to expand their focus into other areas of their life. And what happens is, if you have a low conception of self, if you have a lot of limitations, you're probably going to end up obsessing about it. You're probably going to end up obsessing about it, and then therefore, in turn, focusing more on the 3D and what you don't want. The other aspect of it, which is a little bit segued, but people just straight up, I feel like, focus way too heavily on the instantaneous results, the instant gratification, the instantaneous results. Manifest in 3 days, 24 hours, just assume that you can manifest instantly, blah, blah, blah. But not enough on the idea of sustaining the manifestation when it comes in. And if you're not able to sustain it when it comes in, what's going to happen? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Now, the way that I see it is, yes, you can manifest instantly. Yes, you can manifest by only focusing on your desire. But the problem with that kind of stuff is you never shift to become the person who has it. The way that I like to see it is when you work on self-concept, when you work on the things that you feel like are holding you back, holding you attached to the 3D or to something that they said or some old story, when you work on those elements of yourself while simultaneously dwelling in the end result of having your desire, you are shifting to become the person who has your desire. However, when you just sort of beeline towards your desire, let's say a specific person, when you sit there saying only things like, I'm with this person, we're together, they love me, they this, they that, you're not becoming the person that has it. You've just said it enough to make it happen. And then what happens there is your internal state, your internal story doesn't match that. You've just said it over and over. And yeah, you'll now have this assumption that they're yours, which is obviously why they're in your reality. But all of those previous insecurities, all those previous fears, all the previous feedback from old relationships or how you were brought up, they're going to start creeping back up because you never addressed them. So when you were insecure that they had female or male friends before, by not addressing that, that's probably just going to come up again. And that's why you may end up, as you mentioned, why you may end up just losing them not long after, because the fast success comes with the slow problem of, not keeping them long term. But on the flip side of that, you've got the slow success comes with fast problems. So the idea of, yeah, you may not get it as quick because you're focusing more on like building up yourself as an individual, which, to preface, just because you focus on your self-concept does not automatically mean you won't get it instantly, because you still absolutely can. But what you're doing by focusing on this is you're creating the version of yourself, or stepping into the version of yourself, sorry, that has the desire, which therefore means that you will be able to stay as that version, because now the insecurities, the worries, the doubts, you've addressed them, which means they're no longer going to come up, and which means you're no longer going to face the same problems that caused them to leave in the first place, or caused you to be broke in the first place, or caused whatever it was that's put you in this position in the first place.
Oh my God, I love that, dude. That's like fucking spot on to infinity and beyond, bro. Y'all gonna need to re-listen to that part, because everything this man just said is in my opinion fact, and there's so much truth to it. And I notice it so much. It's, well, not like all the time, but I do notice it. If people spent more time kind of aligning themselves to that version of themselves that actually has it, aligning themselves to the version of themselves of who they want to be, that version that is confident, knows their worth, knows they're chosen, is willing to go above and beyond and actually clear out and face that fear, right? It really does make all the difference, and remember, guys, fear is self-imposed, meaning you created it, you can dismantle and destroy it too. And remember this as well, behind every fear is a version of yourself you want to be. It doesn't have to be one of those things where you allow it to continuously consume you, okay? It's important to work through the fear, work through the resistance, and keep in mind this: fast is slow, slow is fast. All right. If you're willing to do the inner work, say you're doing the inner work and it takes about 4 months to finally get yourself to the point internally where you have it, it's done, etc., etc. You feel the contentment, the calmness, the confidence, and everything in between. And then let's say your desire manifests like 3 months after. So 7 months total. Yeah, it took 7 months, but when it comes in, you're going to be able to sustain it. You're not going to feel triggered. You're not going to react. You're not going to feel like crap. And that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. 7 months working on something to then have it for the rest of your life, in my opinion, is a good trade-off compared to potentially getting it within days, but then spending another 7 months going back and forth, trying to get it back in and losing it back in. And I do, again, want to preface that this is not like for every single scenario. So there will be people here that will say, well, I did only specific person affirmations and I got my person and I kept them. When we talk as coaches on these kind of videos, we generally are talking the majority of people, because I cannot explain the amount of comments I've had that said, I did all of this and then I got it, but then they just left like a couple of weeks later and stuff like that. And that's what we're trying to address, those kind of people.
Right.
Mentioning what you said, going back to what you said about fear, actually, it's going to sound so corny saying it out loud, but there's a saying that I heard before where it's like, fear can mean two things: face everything and run, or face everything and rise. And it sounds so corny, but I do like that because it's 100% true. Like, if you run from those fears, you must be chased by them. In order for you to run from something, that must mean there's something chasing you, which is going to be those feelings that caused you to run in the first place. Whereas if you face it and rise and become a new version, you're not going to have to face those things anymore, and therefore you're not going to receive the experiences they gave you the first time, which I think is like an extremely important thing to remember, not just when it comes to sort of working on self-concept and whether you work on specific person or money, but also the element of when negative thoughts and feelings come up. Now, I know obviously that's not this topic at hand, but it's important to remember that face everything and rise is the same way that you should deal with those negatives as they come up. Face them, sit with them, see where they're coming from and why they're coming from them, and then work through them, as opposed to smothering them with affirmations because you're scared that it's going to create. If you're smothering something with affirmations, you're going to create more of it, more than if you face it and allow it to pass through you without any kind of judgment.
Exactly. It's like the whole idea of force being met with force,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Absolutely.
completely agree with everything you just said. I really like that. I actually really like that acronym. Two of them that I stand by myself is fear, false expectation appearing real, and false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, I like them.
Yeah, but those, I don't think they're corny, by the way. I think that's pretty legit.
No, I think when you say it out loud, it sounds a little bit corny, but the idea behind it is definitely worth taking in. But that actually leads into quite nicely into the next part of the video, the next topic that we want to discuss. And this is the idea of like toxic affirmations. Now, Joey, obviously you presented this idea to me when we were going to discuss the collab. So I'm going to let you take the reins on what you want to discuss on this and kind of how you want to go through this. So what does toxic affirmations mean to you? Like what is it that bugs you or irks you about this kind of way of manifesting?
Yeah, so I'm all about coming from unconditional, healthy love when it comes to manifestation. I am never about coming from fear or toxic positivity or anything. And unfortunately, most of the community in this day and age is really, especially in the law of assumption community, is really centered around, in my opinion, toxic affirmations. Whereas, back in like Neville's day or Dolores Cannon's day, or even Joe Dispenza back, I know he's still teaching, but back in his day, these people weren't teaching this type of stuff. And, I'll give you an example of like toxic affirmations. Some of the ones that I notice in the community is, ones like my SP is thinking about me nonstop every day, or my SP is blowing my phone up, calling me and texting me 24/7 every single day. Or I'll give you two more. My SP is completely miserable without me. Or I'm SP's only source of happiness. Now that one is I don't even know why someone recommended that. I think what I guess quote unquote irks me about it is the fact that people are already in a victim mentality. A lot of people that engage with manifestation, and a lot of newcomers, a lot of people that are even a little bit well off, are in already a low conception of self. They already have a lot of resistance here within them, and I feel that people that teach in that way are it's kind of feeding on that. You know what I'm saying? And we're not going to get into all that specifically, but that's one of the things that kind of irks me, and it's something I'm dealing with and working through within myself. And that's why I always encourage people to take it up a notch and connect with their divine self, connect with their higher self, connect to what they deeply want within the heart of their hearts, allow themselves to connect to love, and allow themselves to be guided with making affirmations from that standpoint instead of from the fear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point, especially that final part, because you know, we get what we're in an abundance of, like even if you don't necessarily mean to be doing it on purpose, if you're in an abundance of something, you will just naturally get more of it. This is why the sayings, the rich get richer, or when it rains it pours. That's why they exist, because when you're in abundance of something, you get more. Now, let me put it this way. If you're affirming something like they're miserable without me, that's coming from fear, that's coming from lack a lot of the time. And quite often you will find that people that affirm those kinds of things actually tend to be the most miserable without their person in the first place, which is why, because what they're putting out this idea that I want you to be miserable without me so that you feel the need to come back to me. Now, when when you sort of word it like that, you realize just how sort of toxic or just how unhealthy that as an affirmation actually is. And then you can kind of see why the individual feels that that's the only affirmation that they can do to get what they want, because they're sitting in a place of, I'm miserable without you. They're getting more of what they're giving out. They're giving out, you be miserable, so they get back, I'm actually miserable. And you'll find that just in the process alone, if you take an affirmation such as, like, you're miserable without me, and change it to something like, you're so happy living right now, but you know you'd be happier with me, even then, that just takes up like an entirely new level, because you're giving out the idea of, yeah, you're happy, you're having a great time. And when you give out that kind of energy and love towards someone else, you just receive it in abundance back, and you'll find that other people around you will start treating you nicer, and you'll find that you'll start enjoying your life more and stuff like that. And it's like, even taking it away from the idea of trying to affirm from fear, if you have nicer affirmations, if you have more love-based affirmations, even if you don't directly get the result from that specific person immediately, you will find that a lot of other areas of your life will also start to improve, because you're coming from that state of love and abundance, and therefore you receive more love and abundance. This is why the most desperate people, and I don't mean desperate in a derogatory term, I'm just sort of talking from like factually, the people that really need their desire, the most desperate people tend to have the most awful affirmations, or the most like chaining or fearful or controlling affirmations, because they're in that state where they feel like, unless I do this, they couldn't possibly want me. I couldn't possibly say you're happy without me but would be happier with me, because they're so scared of the idea of their person being happier without them.
Right. That's a really good point. Yeah. And I think this is beautifully said. Was beautifully said, because it really ties into what we were saying in the first half of this video, with clearing out the resistance and actually working on yourself as a whole. And one thing I wanted to add too is, guys, you got to remember too that everybody is yourself pushed out. You're affirming that your person's miserable without you. You're literally placing them into a state of misery. And in my wholehearted opinion, that's not love. You know what I'm saying? That's not love. That is fear at its finest. And I know some people will hear that and be like, well, I don't really agree, and that's fine. But that's how I see it. If you're affirming that someone's miserable without you, you're directly assuming they're miserable, right? and you're placing them into a state of misery. Like, you got to ask yourself, do you really want your person to be angry without you, sad without you, miserable without you? Like, is this something you really want, or is it something that is deluding you into thinking you want because you can't see beyond your own ego because you have yet to connect to source?
But yeah, no, that is it's a really great point to make. You haven't found yourself yet, and as a result, you're sort of struggling to find the side of you that person would want to come back into. And I don't mean want to as in the idea that they get to choose whether they do or don't. But if you were to think about it from a 3D perspective, let's say that manifestation doesn't exist, because I always think it's worth kind of having that element of thought, just because a lot of people do look into the 3D more than they should, or they do look to the 3D for validation. So let's take that element for a second. Let's say, for example, they were to find out that you wanted them to be miserable without you, and they had the free will to make that choice. Do you think that that would make them want to come back to you if you are actively saying, I want this person to be miserable without me? Like, it doesn't. So even if you take the manifestation element out of it, you're not going to get what you want very well from that perspective, because if they heard how you were affirming, they would probably book it a mile that way.
Damn, bro, you got me with that one, man. That I never really thought about relaying information from that standpoint, but that's a really good way to not only help people make sense of the situation, but that's just a good way to put it all overall. I like that. I like that a lot.
Absolutely. So I think we've covered everything, right? Have you got anything else that you want to say on these topics?
Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess a final message on my end at least is continue working on yourself, clearing out the resistance to doubt. Continue, exploring your desires from that God self perspective. Continue connecting to source, connecting to unconditional love, and be willing to stay consistent and committed and persistent with it. It doesn't get talked about enough, but it's equally as important to stay consistent and committed. Okay.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And there is one final thing that I want to preface for the people that get this far into the video. None of what we're talking about is limiting beliefs. None of what we're saying is you can't get your manifestation because you're working on yourself, or you can't get your manifestation and keep it because you're only focusing on your specific person. What we're just saying is, if you want the best possible chances to not only manifest your desire in, but have a good time manifesting it in as well as retaining it, this is the video that you're going to want to listen to, because, getting your manifestation is one thing. Losing it afterwards, that sucks. Taking forever to manifest your desire and not enjoying it because you're so caught up on focusing on all of these different things instead of actually focusing on yourself and your desire, that's going to suck. So we're just trying to give you the best way to manifest the beginning, as in like sort of, okay, I need to work on myself and my desire. The journey in the middle, i.e., I found something that doesn't feel too good, let me work through it, or this circumstance doesn't feel good, let me work through it. And then once you get your desire, actually keeping it. We're not limiting you by saying you can't just focus on SP, you can't just do this. We're just giving you the best way to come at it from a holistic standpoint to ensure that you have the best time doing so, because that's all we want for you, is to get your desires and actually enjoy the process.
Exactly. No, 100%. Actually, let me just say one more thing for y'all. Think about it like this: a lot of y'all are not working on your self-concept in the way that you could be. You're not going above and beyond. You're not doing it with the faith that it's actually going to benefit you. You're trying to make something happen, right? Acknowledge this. It's not a trying process, and acknowledge this as well. If you guys are manifesting, let's say it takes y'all a year, okay, and you're not working on your self-concept, and you're so caught up in manifesting fast, etc., whatever, focusing on all these toxic things, right? And it takes you a year to manifest what you want. That thing comes in, you can't sustain it, so now it goes back out. Now you're caught up in the cycle again, and you just wasted pretty much a year of your fucking life manifesting in a way that wasn't even beneficial from you, with you, involving you from the get-go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Joey. This has been an amazing video, I think, and for the people that make it the whole way through, hopefully they take away a few golden nuggets from it. And yeah, for those of you that want to go check out Joey's channel, which I implore you do, all of his information will be down below in the description as well as the comment section. He's got coaching services that you can go to. He's got his own YouTube and TikTok and everything. So if you haven't seen Joey before, by all means, go over, have a look, see what he's all about, and definitely check out the video that we did together on his channel, which will be posted around about the same time as this one.
Sounds good. You guys have a beautiful rest of the day, and thank you for having me on, Matt.
And you're very welcome. All right, thank you very much for watching this far, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.